The Business Roundtable out with a statement last week redefining the purpose of a corporation. The updated definition includes a commitment to all stakeholders rather than just shareholders. Join us now to talk more about this pledge, Robert Greifeld, chairman at Virtu Financial, former chairman and CEO of the Nasdaq. Bob is also a CNBC contributor, and I've weighed in on this a lot already, Bob. And there's a time and place for being a little bit cynical, but I'm exhausted from how cynical I was about the whole thing. And I read your comments, and you're just going to get me going again. So I think I'm just going to let you maybe let you opine on this. And I'm just wondering, if you were still active at the Nasdaq and you had to answer to PR concerns more than you do right now, and if virtue signaling was something you could still benefit from, do you think you'd be able to speak as frankly and as bluntly about this? Because you think this is kind of, I don't know. Well, I'm going to let you say what you think of it. But what do you think of the whole idea of the Business Roundtable with this new idea?
Well, Joe, one, good to be here, and I don't want to get you worked up this early in the morning.
I know.
It's early out
I
here.
know.
But I would say this. There's certainly, to me, an element of pandering to the press with respect to what the Business Roundtable has said. And I would also caution everybody to think that if the socialists are in power, this statement is not going to change the focus on for-profit corporations. That being said, I think corporations today operate in a very principled way, and they really operate in what I call enlightened self-interest. You know, there's a lot of comment about what Milton Friedman has said with respect to what corporations have to do, but I like to think about what Maslow said, who was born in Brooklyn like 4 years earlier than Friedman. And he talked about the hierarchy of needs, and when you get up that hierarchy, after you have profit, you certainly think more in an enlightened fashion, and a lot of what Business Roundtable is doing is self-contained in the operations of corporations today. And I certainly get worried when we see Business Roundtable trying to codify this. I never want to be in a situation where I have a public company CEO saying that we had a bad quarter financially, but we had a great quarter because we had different ESG goals or other aspects that are not financial. That's a wrong way for corporations to operate.
That was a new sort of a wrinkle that you introduced me to, that these guys could actually use it as instead of well, we had some currency headwinds, or instead of some weather. They could say, well, we're doing a lot of great ESG stuff, and okay, we didn't make it, but it's okay because we didn't do as well, but we were certainly feeling good about ourselves. I mean, there's so many different ways you can look at it. Number one, if you say to Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, you've been right all along, we've been profit mongers, and now we've seen the light, do you think that's going to satisfy them, and they're going to say, oh, now you're good corporate citizens? No, it just emboldens them to continue along the false narrative that they're preaching right now about corporate America. And no one, after the CEOs did this, no one said, kudos, guys. They all said, oh, now you guys, it caused a financial crisis. You got barbarians at the gate. So now you're seeing some religion. They're asking for it. It's just and Milton Friedman, the other thing. See, you did get me going. Hey, I wish you hadn't.
Yeah, Joe, you said you weren't going to get going. That didn't take very long there.
Milton Friedman, do you know how hard it was for him to make the case that the Adam Smith invisible hand, free market, profit incentive causes accountability, so that you do things that eventually, with your profits, you need profits to keep a business running and to hire people that pay taxes and to satisfy customers. And all the things that you do as a corporation already are positives for society. You don't need to go ahead.
Joe, we're in violent agreement, but I'd also add what Milton Friedman said is you have to maximize profit within the confines of the law, and most importantly, the moral ethos of the time.
You want to hire honest CEOs, Bob.
Main qualifications,
right?
there.
You want to hire good people and people that are, I mean, unless you just assume that everyone's going to be Martin Shkreli, the pharma bro, unless you give them guidelines. I mean, normally you're hiring people that you hope are, in addition to doing things for shareholders, they're going to work within the confines of the community and try to help their employees and give employee raises. But if there comes a time where you have a bloated workforce, and you need to cut back because of a slowdown in the economy, you can't all of a sudden not do what you need to do, or else the whole company goes bankrupt, and then everybody is out of a job.
I can't disagree with that. And Scarelli certainly did not in any way, shape, or form conform to what Milton Friedman was talking about.
No.
He did not follow the law.
And if you continue to rape, pillage, and plunder as a CEO, it's going to come back eventually and haunt you. I mean, I'm not going to use J&J as an example, but you need to think long and hard about how you affect the environment and what you do, because eventually, if you're doing things that aren't productive for society, for your community, for your employees, you're eventually going to see it in the shares anyway.
Right. So we're saying the same thing. I think corporations have to maximize profit, but that by itself is not enough. You have to have an enlightened self-interest, how you run the corporation. You have to build it over a long period of time. And that's your enlightened self-interest, and I think that's how things essentially work today, and they work within the confines of the law. And if they're not, then there's a structure in place to bring the Martin Scarellis to justice.
Do you think you would have said this when you were Nasdaq CEO? You would have been going, great idea, BRT. I'm with you 100%. Would you have had a different take, you think?
Well, I think when you look at the BRT thing, you can also say that they're just changing the ordering of the words, that the actions are not that much different. But no, I have a very deep degree of difficulty with anything that gets away from actually the fundamental mission of the corporation. You have to do other things. You cannot just maximize profit exclusively, as we said, Friedman talked about, but you have to make sure that's first among equals, right? You cannot be there at the end of the quarter saying, I didn't hit my targets, but I have these number of good things I do. That doesn't fly.